In a world asking the question, what if the movies that got delayed came out on time and they were different? That's the case in my universe. I'm Steven Shinder and you're listening to Delayed Replay, Season 5, airing every other Saturday, unless I change my mind. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Delayed Replay, that podcast where we recap and review movies that got delayed in that other universe but came out on time in our universe. I'm your host, Steven Shinder, and joining me has never been on this show before, so it's an honor to have him on. It is George from Headphones UK. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, of course. So you have a big YouTube channel, and from our conversations over on the Discord, I got the impression that you are somewhat of a Garfield fan. So, like, what have been your experiences with Garfield media, like, prior to this movie?
Not as much as you might imagine. I wouldn't call myself a Garfield fan. I'm certainly familiar with Garfield. I've read some of the comic strips. Regrettably, I did watch the Bill Murray movie once, and I have seen a bit of the Garfield and Friends Saturday morning cartoon, which was really good. But yeah, I'm not like a super fan or anything like that.
Right. Well, I think anyone who's read the comic strips has kind of like, I don't know, I kind of see it as like a higher level than me. Like, even if it's just like one comic strip, like I can't even remember if I've read any of the comic strips. For me, I do kind of remember seeing the 2D cartoon. Like, I vaguely remember a scene where John goes up a ladder onto the roof, and then Garfield is frustrated about something and just like removes the ladder. So like, I don't know how John gets down after that, but yeah, I have seen both of the live action movies, and as a kid I remember enjoying them, but now I'm not so sure that I would.
They're definitely not good movies, even evaluating them separate from the comic strip. But when you look at the comic strip,
Right.
or even anything that got Garfield's character down well, like the cartoon series, it's a real spit in the face because it does not represent that at all.
Yeah, like we're so used to seeing Garfield standing up, for example, and it was so weird seeing him on all fours because they were going for a kind of realism thing, but
They couldn't quite get the balance because they wanted it to look realistic, but at the same time, sort of cartoony, and they just couldn't quite. To be fair, it was at a time when you didn't really have the technology to pull that sort of thing off. And that movie doesn't look like it had a lot of budget behind it anyway.
right. Back then, you couldn't do a Sonic movie, for example, in live action.
Oh no, the technology would not have been around. And even then, like the actual effects we did get for the Sonic movie, the finished version, even then they weren't amazing. They were good enough, but they weren't anything spectacular.
Right. And later on, I did see a 3D animated Garfield movie. It was a TV movie. I think it was called Garfield Gets Real, which is a bizarre title because it's not live action. But basically, in that one, it was like all of the comic strip characters were aware that they're in a comic strip, and they're in the studio where they have to pose for photos, and then those become the comic strips, and then Garfield somehow goes into the real world, which is still animated in this. But then I think there was a TV show on Cartoon Network that was in the same style, but without the comic strip and a studio job
Yeah,
gimmick.
there was the CGI Garfield version, which I think that was the first thing to have Frank Welker as the voice of Garfield, because of course Lorenzo Music was the voice of Garfield for a long time, but
Yeah,
after he passed away, Frank Welker took over, and he's now still the voice of Garfield in most of the things.
right. So this new film from Sony, yeah,
Yeah, Sony Animation, who also helped bring us the Spider-Verse movies, Mitchell's versus Machines, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and other such films.
yeah, they call this one It's kind of confusing because the 2004 live action is called Garfield the Movie, and this one is called The Garfield Movie. So I think it's only a matter of time before someday they just make one where it's called The Movie Garfield or something like that, just move the words around. It also kind of follows a trend like the Super Mario Brothers movie, like just yeah, I'm kind of noticing a trend with the titling there. For this one, we got Chris Pratt voicing Garfield. Uh,
Yes.
yeah, what'd you think of his overall like job, like voicing Garfield in this one?
I it's tricky to say because on the one hand there are elements of his voice that work. Like he's got a deep-ish voice, and I feel like Garfield does need to have a sort of a deep bassy voice that kind of projects that sort of cynicism that the character has. But at the same time, he didn't really have the same kind of gruffness to his voice like Lorenzo Music or Frank Welker have that
Mm.
make it clear that because like people describe Garfield as like a mix between a cynical old man and an excitable little kid. And I think in this situation, they sort of leaned a bit too much towards the excitable little kid. There needs to be a good balance between those two sides of him.
Yeah, when I think of Garfield's voice, like, the typical Garfield voice that we all have in our heads, I imagine him being somewhat disinterested and lazy. And to be fair, Chris Pratt, like, in Parks and Recreation, I don't know if you're familiar with that show.
Not seen Parts and Rec. I'm mostly familiar with Chris Pratt from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, where he plays Star-Lord, where he does a fine
Mm.
job in those. As Emmett from the Lego Movie, another Sony made. Sorry, no, that was Warner Brothers. Sorry, but yeah, from the Emmett from the Lego Movie, where he did a really good job with that.
Yeah, like in Parks and Rec, he started off as a character who was lazy, but he still had that excitable way of talking. So even though he was lazy in behavior, he wasn't quite lazy in speech. So like here it gets kind of jarring hearing Garfield say stuff like "I hate Mondays," in that type of voice, as opposed to like how we're used to hearing it.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, you make a good point of leaning into the kid angle. Like they spent some time with the whole baby Garfield uh idea here. That's another trend we've been seeing with some characters, isn't it?
Yeah, which to be fair, Garfield can be cute, but it is also a franchise that kind of mocks the idea of, cuteness for the sake of cuteness. So it's kind of interesting to see them lean into that aspect.
Yeah, like they basically begin with Garfield as a kitten. I almost said puppy, but that's different animal entirely, like wrong family.
No, yeah, he's not a dog.
Right. Um, and basically, this movie has a father character for him, Vic, voiced by Samuel L. Jackson. But yeah, he's pretty much on his own, but he wanders around and discovers John, the human companion we're so used to seeing him with in uh, a place where he's eating food. And so we get this montage of Garfield eating like pizza and lasagna. What'd you think of how the food looked in this movie?
I have to be honest, as a person who's not a big fan of Italian food, it did look really tasty.
Yeah, like when I went to go see this, I got pizza from the concession stand because I knew that I was gonna get hungry while watching this, so I paid for overpriced pizza for that.
Yeah.
One of the things that happens is that, as Garfield grows older, Odie comes into the picture, so we see a little bit of them becoming used to each other. What'd you think of their dynamic in this version?
Not too different from what we normally see, just sort of OT being an over-enthusiastic friend to Garfield and Garfield not seeming to care about him all that much. It's the same stuff we normally see.
Yeah, do you think they could have shaken it up somehow? Like, is there a way they could have done it differently?
I don't think so, really, because I mean, to be fair, because the first Garfield movie, the live action one, tried to shake it up by having Garfield eventually admit that he likes Odie and having him save him, which, I mean, that was just a really kind of contrived, trite family movie plot. So, yeah, I think really Odie's just the kind of character who's just there to be a punching bag for Garfield. That's just the way he functions, really.
Yeah, like I can see for the live action, they'd probably think, oh, a cat saving a dog, it'll be a cute movie. But like you said, Garfield kind of defies that whole sort of thing when Garfield is truest to itself. So eventually, Garfield is mistaken by these other animals for his father, who's like basically a criminal of sorts. He's like this huge cat who does heists apparently. Um,
Yeah.
and Garfield like resents his dad for leaving him. Even shows a lot of emotion, like berating him. What'd you think of his father character in this?
It's interesting because I don't think we've ever gone into Garfield's parents or his backstory before in the franchise, as far as I'm aware, anyway. And it's interesting having Samuel L. Jackson play his dad of all
Yeah.
people. I mean, it's like it's not the kind of choice I would have gone for. Sort of like, well, who can we get to be the dad of Garfield? I know. I mean, to be fair, Samuel L. Jackson, a lot of his roles do involve him being some kind of a cynic or a grumpy guy, so I suppose it kind of fits.
Yeah. Throughout the movie, I couldn't help but think, oh, Nick Fury is Star Lord's dad in this, and it kind of took me out, I'll admit. But
Yeah,
maybe that is kind of part of the joke in a way. I'm just not sure how well it lands, really.
yeah.
So his dad tries to convince him that uh, there's like, there's a lot to love about doing heists. And Odie, like in a way, they kind of make Odie the conscience for Garfield, trying to pull him away from like all these like criminal activities as they go on this adventure, like way far away from where John lives. But yeah, what'd you think of some of the stuff that happened on this adventure?
It didn't seem anything too different from stuff you would normally see in a kids movie these days. I think Garfield's one of those characters where you can pretty much have him doing anything so long as he feels like he's still Garfield doing the things that he does. It's still Garfield and it'll still be entertaining. Uh, I'd say that this movie got it better than the Bill Murray one because even though Bill Murray did a good job voicing Garfield, they didn't write him very well at all. But yeah, this one still felt more like Garfield to me.
Yeah, they do give him strange obstacles. Like there's one where there's like some sort of valuable shiny trinket, but it's inside of a salad. So the challenge is that Garfield has to eat the salad in order to find it, which I mean, terrible way to try to obtain something valuable. Like, why not just dig through the salad, you know?
Yeah.
Well, we also got Snoop Dogg as Snoop Cat.
Yeah,
Yeah, what'd you think of that?
was I love Snoop Dogg as like just a personality. I'm not a big rap guy, but I do love Snoop Dogg. He's just so entertaining to watch in just about anything. So yeah, I was just happy to see him really.
Yeah, it's interesting how he's willing to show up in some of these things. Like I think he was in the third SpongeBob movie a few years back,
Well, I
Sponge on
didn't
the
I
Run.
didn't watch that, so I wouldn't know. But he was also in the Arthur and the Invisibles movies as well. I'm trying to think because he has been in a few kids movies.
Oh yeah, I don't think I knew he was in those movies. Yeah, those movies are kind of wild because there were certain. I think the romance plot thread was cut out of a version that aired over here. Um, yeah, those movies are like a weird trip. Yeah.
They are. I'm just looking at his filmography here. Yeah, he was in Futurama once as well.
Yeah,
What else? He's in scary movies, but that doesn't surprise. Oh, he was in Turbo, the racing snail. Yes,
yeah,
and what else? Oh yeah, he's cousin It in the Addams Family movies, the CGI ones. I forgot about
yeah, yeah. I totally forgot that he was it.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so hey, he's going places with his filmography. Um, but and we, the movie does cut back to, John, voiced by Nicholas Hoult, who's like worried about Garfield and Odie. What'd you think of this parallel plot thread where he's trying to figure out like where they could have gone and how to find them?
Uh, didn't think much of it, to be honest. I mean, the whole joke of John is that he's just a constant loser, basically, and never gets any kind of breaks. So, yeah, I guess that kind of follows and tracks with this, I suppose.
Yeah, with other Garfield media, I remember being frustrated, like not being able to tell if John could understand Odie or Odie Garfield, but
Yeah.
in this they kind of make a strange choice of like before Garfield and Odie go missing, um, apparently John can understand Garfield in this.
Yeah,
Um,
it's always been vague as to whether or not they can understand each other.
yeah, so I don't know, like making it explicit here, do you think that sort of betrays the like traditional way of doing things, or do you think it like was a nice change up? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Uh, I don't really have any kind of thoughts about it personally.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just sort of it seemed to mostly stick to the feel of what Garfield's supposed to be, not to a point where I would say it was very faithful of the comic strips like the cartoon series have been, but it was still better than the Bill Murray one.
Yeah. And they also introduce this, for a while in this movie, it feels like Garfield's dad is the villain, which he kind of is, but they also sort of surprise us with a guinea pig who is like a rival criminal animal.
Considering the movie Bad Guys and Super Pets, seems that guinea pigs have become a new villain creature in animated movies.
Yeah. I mean, throwback to when there was that G-Force movie with secret agent guinea pigs. I don't know if you remember that at all.
Um, I do, but I always forget that movie is a thing.
Yeah.
It's just sort of like, oh yeah, Disney made a movie about secret agent guinea pigs.
Yeah, I think I think the music was done by someone that me and my dad have talked to. But yeah. What do you think of a voice actor that they got to play this guinea pig villain?
Wasn't it Nathan Lane?
Yeah, yeah. It's like I was like, is that Timon? And it's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was him. Yeah.
Yeah, so sort of like it's interesting seeing him play a bad guy for what I mean, he normally plays characters that are like kids, but they're never the bad guys. They're normally side characters or stuff like that. So it's interesting to see him playing a bad guy.
Even because he and Vic are rivals, the guinea pig Nathan Lane is like, hey, this is my territory, stay in your lane. And it's like, oh, okay, that's a joke for the adults, I guess, who know who he is.
Yeah.
There's like this huge chase that ensues where the two rivals are fighting each other, and Garfield and Odie are kind of caught in the middle of it, and it takes place on top of this train. um like whenever there are these sequences with all these moving parts, there's a question of whether the fluidity of the animation is good. So how did this whole sequence play off for you?
I mean, I will say it's like the animation of the movie is it's pretty decent. The tricky thing with Garfield is that it's difficult to convey the feel of the comic strip in an animated format. Like the Garfield and Friends cartoon series had really cheap looking animation, but it did actually kind of fit and it made it feel like it was the comic strip. This is so elaborate and well crafted, but it does still have a feel of being Garfield, even if it does look really overproduced compared to the comic strips and the older cartoon series. And I think the movements they do, where it's kind of like very stop-start animation, that actually kind of fits very well for the Garfield theming.
Yeah, I think the character designs are kind of in line with the simplicity, while the setting and all these moving parts and whatnot.
The actual structure of the character designs fits with the style of Jim Davis's original art very well.
Yeah, and like you said, like the setting and everything that surrounds them feels like it's bigger because they're doing this theatrical movie. It's basically what they do when they bring animated characters to the big screen while still in animation. So
Yeah,
uh, yeah, I think for me there was kind of a disconnect because I don't know, it feels kind of silly like giving an elaborate world for Garfield of all characters, if that makes sense.
yeah.
They basically, almost fall off of this train and um actually do they fall off, or like where do they end up when at the end of this sequence? I'm trying to remember like the
I think
order of
they
these
sort of
events.
landed. I think they landed in a farm, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, like they were on a high level and they fell into a farm. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, lucky for them that there was a lot of hay for them to land on. But then they do like I know that there's slapstick sometimes, but I kind of got annoyed when they did the overdone cliche of like, Garfield takes a step and a rake comes up and hits his face. Um,
it would have been funny if they put the sideshow Bob in there.
yeah,
I mean, it would have been an obvious reference, but it would have been funny.
right. Yeah, maybe that's why it wasn't as funny. It didn't have the Sideshow Bob sound. Um, but yeah, Garfield is at his lowest and he is like arguing with his dad. What'd you think of like the whole back and forth that they had, like this argument?
Uh, it felt kind of typical sort of kids movie nowadays. I mean, kids movies nowadays, at least the theatrically released ones that get a lot of advertisement, feel like they have to have a really, really big emotional revelation and a big message behind it. And to be fair, when they do it right, it's really good. But it does kind of feel like it doesn't quite fit for Garfield because Garfield was always about sort of simple ideas and just mocking the idea of modern life. So yeah, this whole sort of thing of, I didn't grow up with you, but you had John instead, but I missed you, blah blah blah. Yes, it didn't really work for me.
Yeah, like they did the whole forced and contrived, you should have been there for me because you're my dad. And it's like, it doesn't come off authentic enough in these types of animated movies. And they also get kind of meta where Garfield even asks like, "Oh, what about my mom? Huh? What happened to her? Why are we asking about her?" And it's like, oh yeah, why doesn't this movie like ask what happened with Garfield's mom if we're also exploring what happened with his dad?
Yeah, yeah, they never do establish who's Garfield's mum. But it's a thing that happens a lot in kids' movies, particularly animated ones, where they only seem to have one parent for some reason.
Yeah, it's really strange. Um, I think that's something I would have liked. Well, I hesitate to say would have liked because I don't know if the execution would have been good, but if this movie had delved a bit more into like what happened with the mom, but I mean, adding a dad character for Garfield in this type of story already felt like a stretch. So like, I really don't know like what I would have preferred really.
Yeah.
But there's also the popular song Back in Black by AC/DC. What'd you think of where they placed it in this movie?
I mean, I'm a big fan of AC/DC, even though I do feel Back in Black is a very overused song in their repertoire. It gets used so much, and it's sort of like, they did other songs, you could use those. But I always do like seeing AC/DC pop up in something.
Right. Yeah, like it shows up. So after the argument, Garfield parts ways with his dad and like doesn't want to like be associated with his criminal activities, but he knows that he has to stop his dad from stealing from a museum. And so uh Odie tries cheering Garfield up, and basically when he decides he's gonna stop his dad is when the song Back in Black plays, as a little
Yeah.
montage. Yeah, so they go to the this museum, and like what'd you think of this whole sequence, like trying to stop his dad from pulling off this heist?
Uh, Weirdly, it reminded me a lot of the heist scene from the Wallace and Gromit short, The Wrong Trousers. Uh, it's just sort of this, I don't know why, but it's just, I always love that sequence in The Wrong Trousers. It's surprisingly intense. And yeah, this reminded me a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've seen that one, but
Wrong Trousers is probably the best of the Wallace and Gromit shorts. I mean, some people would argue Close Shave, which is also very good. But no, I think Wrong Trousers is the best one.
okay, I think the only ones I've seen, like I've seen the Curse of the Were-Rabbit film, but out of the earlier stuff, I do remember, I think Wallace and Gromit go to the moon and it's made of cheese or something.
That was the very first one.
Okay, and there's also one where I think there's a robot dog, if I'm not mistaken.
That was the third one.
Okay, I've seen those at least. This whole heist thing, uh, Garfield is just incredibly bad at being sneaky. It really downplays the trope of like cats being expert thieves, but he's just like rolling around, tripping over like the security things, and
Yeah.
yeah, which is, it really makes you question like how is his dad even able to get past security? Like he has like a bigger, like he takes up more space, so it's like how is he able to sneak past everything whereas Garfield can't?
Well, he was sort of like, sort of morphing his fat around all the lasers, which was actually kind of funny.
Oh yeah, yeah, he was doing like he does the classic like limbo thing at one point, and also
Yeah.
like stretching, like squeezing to the side against the wall, kind of doing like a Tetris thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Garfield reaches his dad before he can snatch a like this diamond that's pink, which I'm pretty sure is supposed to be like a little reference to the Pink Panther diamond, but they can't outright say
Could be,
it.
yeah. Well, no, obviously they can't. Which it's funny how a lot of people don't realize the Pink Panther, the film, is a reference to the diamond. A lot of people think it's the name, like a nickname for Inspector Clouseau or something, but no, it's just the name of the diamond in the film series.
Oh yeah, as a kid, I was more familiar with like the idea of the animated Pink Panther. So
So was
when
I. I had no idea that it was originally from that film series.
yeah, so when the Steve Martin remake film came out, I thought, "Oh, I guess this is partially inspired by the cartoon in some way." And then at the video store, when there used to be video stores, I
Yeah,
saw that there were a couple of the older Pink Panther movies with like the original Inspector Clouseau. And I thought the Steve Martin one was funny at the time. I was probably in 6th grade. But watching it more recently this past year, I was like, some of this is really cringe.
yeah,
Garfield tries stopping Vic, and to the point where, they're throwing one liners at each other, and Garfield's like, if you don't stop Vic, you're going to become a convict. just wordplay there.
Yeah.
They try to talk about like why does Vic steal things? Like, is it because it's valuable or is it some other reason? I thought it was kind of lackluster. He talks about how when he was a kitten, he used to eat like spaghetti and meatballs, and the meatballs were that he loved most were shaped like diamonds, and so whenever he's trying to steal diamonds, he's trying to recapture that feeling of eating spaghetti and meatballs when he was like very little, recapturing the childhood.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, it's really silly to be honest, and feels
Yeah.
a bit too close to like Ratatouille in a way with like
A little,
Eco.
yeah.
Yeah. So over the course of this attempt to stop his dad, Garfield gets framed. The security people think that he's trying to steal this diamond,
Yeah.
and his dad almost gets away with it. But then he looks back and decides that he wants to take the fall. So, what'd you think of this as like the resolution to that whole ordeal?
Uh, well, it's like I said, I feel that Garfield's a sort of franchise that doesn't need to have a story that gets all big and emotional. But to be fair, this is a theatrical movie. You've got to have some sense of stake to it. So I guess it was sort of the best way you could have ended it in that situation, really.
Yeah, I mean, with the plot that they gave this movie, centering it on his dad and his dad being a criminal, like, I don't know how else they could have done it really, but in a movie that would have had a different plot, a different direction, like,
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. I'm very curious, like, what else they could have done apart from this particular storyline. Um, but yeah, his dad has to like face consequences and do some time. Apparently, they have like this animal jail type thing. It looks just like human jail, but the animals like have like their own orange jumpsuits and are doing time and eating uh like their food kind of looks like slop and like just
Yeah,
out of a can basically.
yeah,
So Garfield gets to visit him at least, and he's like, "Hey, eventually you'll serve your time and be on your way out." Um, but yeah, what'd you think of the reunion with John? Like once Garfield and Odie were back with him.
Uh, I do kind of. It was quite funny with the reunion, like John's being like, "Oh my God, Garfield, Odie, you're back," and Garfield just doesn't really care. It's like, "What's for dinner?"
Yeah,
That was funny. That was very Garfield. I like that.
yeah, that was like so authentically Garfield.
Yeah,
Like he notices that there are all these like signs on lampposts and stuff or whatever that are like, have you seen this dog and cat? And like he sees that John has gone through all this effort, but he's just like, give me some food basically.
yeah,
And yeah, it just ends with him eating lasagna and asking what day it is, and he's told that it's Monday, and he's like, oh, I hate Mondays.
yeah.
So, what are your final thoughts on the Garfield movie and your score out of 10? And, like, what object is your unit of measurement for that score?
Um, I'd say that I'd probably give it maybe 6.5 out of 10. Like it was decent enough, but it wasn't anything that spectacular, really.
Okay. And what object would you use as, like, the unit of measurement for that score out of 10?
I'd say it would be an apple.
Okay, 6 out of 10 apples. Yeah, because, yeah, there was that scene where Garfield was, like, forced to eat an apple when he was, like, starving. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'd also give this 6 out of 10, like 6 out of 10 plates of salad. Um, it's an okay diversion, if people like just want like 90 minutes of family time, like this is an okay way to do the trick, but it's not quite that deep. And even if it were trying to be super deep, I'm not so sure that that would have felt very Garfield. Like,
Yeah,
I almost would have preferred, like, I don't know, like 90 minutes of just everyday, like, slice of life Garfield shenanigans instead of like this whole, like, father son story that they were trying to
yeah.
tell.
But to be fair, it would be difficult to do that sort of thing for a majorly advertised, motion picture that's being released in cinemas.
Yeah, like whenever they do a movie based on a long running thing, like they feel like they have to go big. For example, for like The Simpsons, like it's like, oh, we have to save the town, or like the Hey Arnold movie, like God save the town. Like it feels like they always have to go big with these sorts of things.
Yeah, and sometimes it works, but there are some franchises where it doesn't really need to go like that.
Right, yeah. So yeah, very very curious to see like what else happens with the Garfield franchise in the future. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, thanks for joining me for this recap and review, George. Tell people about your channel, Headphones UK.
Yeah, so check out Headphones UK on YouTube. I do reviews of movies and TV shows and sometimes other things. And we're also doing Dark Crystal Age of Resistance for a few weeks on my channel.
Oh yeah, when does that start? Is that
That's next Sunday.
okay, Sunday the 24th. Okay, so this episode will be out the day before then. And
Okay.
yeah, and is it like one episode per week that you're doing the watch
Yeah,
along,
it's
or
one episode per week.
okay. Yeah, and Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, it's probably my favorite. I know people will say it's a low bar because Netflix being Netflix, but it's probably my favorite Netflix series, that show. To me, like probably the most beautiful on-screen thing I've seen in years. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't actually seen the show. I've seen clips. So actually, first time actually properly watching it.
Okay. You've seen the film though, right?
Yes, because we did a review of that a couple of years ago.
Okay, yeah. All right. So yeah, people check that out and check out George's channel. I'll include the link in the show notes. And yeah, that's it for this one. And without further delay, have a good day.
All right, now this is me after the fact, and the other me from that other universe where things got delayed. We'll be talking about some, I guess, trailers and thoughts on stuff that's been coming out. So we'll try to be as non-spoilery as possible. But in the meantime, you go check out Headphones UK on YouTube. And you can email Delayed Replay via delayedreplaypodcast@gmail.com. Let us know your thoughts on lasagna, I guess. And you can follow me at Steven Shinder on the socials and find me on Goodreads and Letterboxd, stevenshinder.com. Both my standalones and Stepping Stones novels are on Amazon. And I was recently on Mr. Multiverse's Requalizers over on his Patreon, talking about what if there was a Jurassic Park requel, a sequel that only acknowledged the original, and it was an interesting topic to do. And you can also find me on Yesshift, which I do with my dad, talking about music. We just did an interview with Oliver Wakeman, whose new solo album Anam Cara is now available for pre-order on Burning Shed. Lots of cool stuff there. And over at Drum Talk TV, there's a lot of stuff happening. So if music is your thing, go check those out. And yeah, also Steven Shinder's storytelling on Facebook. And yeah, all the links will be in the show notes as usual. But without further delay, here's the me from that other universe. Hey everyone, this is Steven from that other universe. So, just giving overall thoughts on TV and movie stuff going on my end. There's been some trailers and there's also been announcements. So, I was kind of sort of, but also not very proactively thinking about seeing Kung Fu Panda 4. I've not seen it, and I think it's really gonna depend on, like, I don't know, like, on whether anyone else says, like, they're gonna go see it, because I've been hearing mixed things about this one, which, I mean, I don't really know. I really loved the first 3 movies, seen a good chunk of the Legends of Awesomeness TV show, and the Paws of Destiny series, which I thought was maybe a bit better. I know there is a Dragon Knight TV show, but it's I've not gotten around to that. But I don't think it's required viewing to see this 4th movie, but again, I have not seen it, and I'm still not sure if it's happening. There's just been like a lot of stuff going on work-wise and such, so it hasn't been a top priority, really. And I think this weekend, at least over my universe, the new Ghostbusters Frozen Empire movie came out. Honestly, I'm not interested. The Afterlife movie, you know, the revival, it felt kind of just fine, like barely better than the 2016 reboot. And for this one, Frozen Empire, like, they're bringing back Bill Murray and those guys, I guess, and relying so much on the older gang. I don't know if they only brought back him or other people for this one. That's how little in tune with the marketing I am. Like, I see the ads and then I kind of just forget them. So yeah, I'm not really interested. If I don't know, it feels like there's a lot of nostalgia bait going on, and it seemed like they were gonna be all in with the newer characters, but it looks like that's not the case. So yeah, I'm quite honestly not interested. And that other Empire movie, Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, I've been kind of interested in possibly seeing it. You know, I've been kind of mixed on the MonsterVerse. I thought Godzilla 2014 wasn't very good, and then Kong Skull Island was okay. King of the Monsters I actually really enjoyed, and then Godzilla versus Kong I guess was fine. Godzilla -1 really ignited my interest in the Godzilla franchise and mythology even more, to the point where I was like, okay, I might actually see a lot of Godzilla movies now. And I actually haven't seen as many as I thought I would by this point, but I'm still interested in that franchise. And I know that this one won't be as good as -1. It's a different style and tone, more blockbustery. So I don't know. I think it's really going to be a flip of the coin whether I see that one, but it's not the biggest priority for me. Now, moving on from empires and over to kingdoms, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is for sure going to be top priority for me. It comes out in May. I think it even got moved up 2 weeks not too long ago. Now less than 50 days away from it. I'm really excited for it. I'm a huge fan of most of the classic Apes films, and the 2001 movie was the 2001 movie. That's pretty self-explanatory. But the reboot films, they've been surprisingly good, and I really hope that they're able to continue that streak. The trailers for these, or teasers, trailers, whatever, look really good, and I'm really excited for this, and I might even see Furiosa a couple weeks later. Fury Road was the only Mad Max movie I thought was great, so Furiosa hopefully can follow suit. And there's also an Alien Romulus trailer. I only watched it once and was kind of surprised by how modern it looked, but then I remembered, oh, okay, so there's this, and there's the Alien TV series that Noah Hawley's making, which that one will be the more cassette futurism, like in the style of how technology looked in the original Alien, I guess. Yeah, so that one takes place before Alien and ignores, the TV show, I should say. That future upcoming TV show will be a prequel to Alien, ignoring the Prometheus and Covenant movies. I didn't dislike Prometheus like lots of people did, and Covenant is good as a standalone if you don't know the context of what came before, but as a Prometheus sequel, I thought it failed as a Prometheus sequel. Feels like there's a missing movie between, but, I guess gotta toss that aside when watching the new show whenever it comes out. But yeah, Alien Romulus, the movie, the Fede Alvarez movie, takes place between Alien and Aliens. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. There's also a trailer for the second half of Chucky season 3. And I don't know why they split this season a few months apart. It's an 8-episode season. First 4 episodes aired, and then it's been on break since December, I believe. Maybe November. I don't really remember, but wow, that rhymed. I didn't intend that. But it comes back April 10th, and the trailer does get me more excited that it's coming back. Because for those who don't know, Chucky is feeling an existential crisis and getting older, and the trailer shows different iterations of Charles Lee Ray throughout his life, and it looks like Brad Dourif will get to play some sort of human version of the character once again, so it'll be fascinating to see how that turns out. I'm kind of getting final season vibes from this. Like, it's kind of tough to imagine that the show will go beyond season 3, but I could very well be wrong. And there's also a trailer for the Penguin TV show, which takes place in the world of The Batman, the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson movie. It looks really well made, the show. I'm not the biggest Penguin fan, but I have a feeling that once I watch it and, they get into all the underworld stuff of Gotham, like, it'll be a very thrilling type of show to watch. And it can't be understated that I think Colin Farrell really blew people's expectations and did a fantastic job, and it's cool that they're using a TV show to expand the world of the Batman. I guess I don't know if it was a Gotham PD show or an Arkham show that fell by the wayside, but I don't know, maybe those are in that other universe. I don't really know, the delayed replay one, but yeah, the Penguin TV show I think has some promise. It could very well be DC's answer to the Netflix Defenders stuff, when those were good, and like dealing with the street level type stuff. And another thing, Invincible, the animated superhero show based on the Robert Kirkman comic, it's come back, and again, it's no spoilers, but these first couple episodes after it's returned, I've really enjoyed. There's been some nice introspective stuff. I still don't know why they needed a break between episodes. Again, this is another 8-episode season, and a break of like 3 months or something between episodes 4 and 5. Like, they really did not need to do that. They could have just waited to release everything like around this time. So, on a weekly schedule, I should say, because I prefer that. But yeah, I hope the show is still getting the attention it deserves. It's one of the best superhero shows in history, I would say. So just a great adaptation of the comics, and yeah, I hope it's still getting the attention it deserves. But another superhero cartoon, X-Men 97, made its debut the other day with the first 2 episodes. Now, I know there is a whole hubbub with the series creator getting fired, and you can read all about that. I was kind of surprised, and it happened like shortly before the show premiered. But these first 2 episodes are really good. I watched all of the 1992 cartoon, I would say back in 2012 to 2013, maybe 14, like somewhere around there. And I was thinking of rewatching it in the lead up to this, but a few episodes in, it felt kind of rough, and I was like, I'm not really sure I can do this, so I'll just go into X-Men 97 without having rewatched all of it. And I really think that people could go into X-Men 97 without having watched or rewatched the 1992 series. The animation looks better, of course, and Cyclops, has become the real MVP, capturing people's imaginations. They really do him well here. And there's dialogue that catches you up on the current situation, like in case there's stuff you don't remember from the older show, or it's very broad strokes. Like, it's not info dumpy, and I'm really enjoying the vibe of this show. I was kind of skeptical going in, because like a lot of the stuff regarding X-Men over here has been very nostalgia based, and like based around the familiar like actors and such, and not really doing much new. But I think the feel of this show is a nice blueprint for how future X-Men movies should feel. So I guess you could look at it as a primer for the viewers to maybe start figure out what to expect from future X-Men content in the MCU, perhaps, even though this is a separate universe. X-Men has to be like a team thing, like truly. So yeah, I'm pretty looking forward to seeing what else happens this season. And now Spider-Man, shifting gears like Marvel-wise, there's been an announcement that the Spider-Man movies are being re-released, like all 8 of them, the Tobey, Andrew, and Tom movies. And they're doing this thing called Spider Mondays. I think it starts in April. And I know people are gonna like have fun seeing this, but I kind of suspect that this is Sony's attempt at gauging like how much does the audience want to see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield again, like especially after the smash hit that was No Way Home. Because there have been rumors that Marvel Studios and Sony are kind of debating back and forth whether Tom Holland's fourth Spider-Man movie should be street level and just him, or if it should have more multiverse shenanigans with Tobey and Andrew. And I would prefer street level. So part of me worries that this, if there's a huge turnout for these re-releases, that it'll give Sony the upper hand in saying, see, we need Tobey and Andrew with Tom again or something. Now, a possible positive that could come out of this is maybe they'll think Spider-Man 4 with Tobey and Amazing Spider-Man 3 with Andrew should be made. And I would like to see those. Although Amazing Spider-Man 3, I would think might work better if it were animated, because Amazing Spider-Man 2 kind of set up 3 to be not too long after 2, so I kind of feel like I don't know like how hard or easy it would be to suspend your disbelief in terms of the passage of time if it were live action. So I kind of think I'd prefer Amazing Spider-Man 3 being animated, but Spider-Man 4 with an older Peter, I think could still work. Maybe it would be a different story than what Sam Raimi originally wanted to do, with Vulture or Vulturous, I guess. And I really wonder what happened to the symbiote sample that Dr. Kurt Connors had. Like if he destroyed it after seeing what happened at the end of Spider-Man 3, or if he continued studying it. Like, I do still wonder that. But again, like it's a double-edged sword, because it's like there's the road not taken, and there's the road that is about to be taken that could diverge one way or another, and one way could have less risks and the other could have really exciting risks. Like, do you go for the nostalgia bait, or do you try to welcome something new? And so I have like really mixed feelings about all of this. Like, I do want to see Spider-Man 4 and Amazing Spider-Man 3, but not if it means like butchering Tom Holland's Spider-Man 4. Like, I don't want people to take the wrong messages and just make everything a cameo fest. Like, I think that mistake was made with the Flash movie, for example. Like, Michael Keaton had no reason to be in that movie. Like, a Michael Keaton Batman wouldn't really shake things up, because it's still Bruce Wayne and not really that different. So, also in terms of re-releases, the Star Wars Skywalker saga is being re-released, episodes 1 through 9. It was originally just going to be 1 from the looks of it, and episode 1 will have, I guess they're episode 1 screenings that'll have the Acolyte, like, production stuff included, like some sort of tease, I guess. But there'll also be, I think that's on May the 3rd, and there will also be screenings of all 9 Skywalker saga movies in places. And I know people are excited, and it might be like a full day of watching all 9 films, and that just sounds really exhausting to me. Like, I'm not even 100% sure if I'll see the Phantom Menace re-release. Yeah, I don't know. Like, for some things, I very rarely go to these re-release things, which is wild, because like a decade ago, I would go to these things. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess I'm just at a place where I kind of just want the memories of watching some of these things back in the day to remain memories, And granted, I haven't seen the original trilogy in theaters, but I just get so busy that it's a big ask to get me to get out and see some of these re-releases. Um, and I'm gonna have a pretty busy weekend going to a concert that weekend on May the 4th as well. So yeah, like I want new experiences, you know? But regarding The Acolyte, the trailer for that new upcoming Star Wars live action show that takes place at the end of the High Republic era, about 100 years before The Phantom Menace. Trailers don't really do much for me, but the more I see like the images that pop up in my feed, the more I'm really curious like how they're gonna do this, and it's gonna be a thriller, like I guess investigation type show. So I think I'll be more excited once I'm actually watching it. And you know, this is a Star Wars show that's in a whole different era, you know, as far as the live action stuff is concerned, because we've had Young Jedi Adventures, which was an animated show in the High Republic era, and Tales of the Jedi had stuff slightly before the prequels, and Star Wars Visions had stuff that was like way outside of the movies. But this is a first for live action Star Wars, and I hope it is a sign of good things to come. I think I would have been more excited for the trailer if I didn't already know about this show for like over 3 years. But I'm going to be there watching this show and hoping that it sets a new standard for Star Wars shows in a good way. Like, explore more new things, unfamiliar things. And lastly, there was a trailer for the upcoming series of Doctor Who, Ncuti Gatwa, the 15th Doctor's first series. It looks like it'll be fun. There's dinosaurs. There is a bit of the butterfly effect, I guess, will be explored. I think that's just going to be a one-scene gag and not like a full episode thing or major plot point, but I could be wrong. Apparently there was a bit of a mistake with the color grading. Like, I guess the wrong version was uploaded or something with brighter lighting, and when the lighting is less, the trailer looks, or the images I've seen at least, look better. But yeah, I hope it's a really good season of Doctor Who. You know, 15th Doctor is very happy-go-lucky, and I think will be really refreshing to see. But of course, he can be introspective when he needs to be, as we saw in the Christmas special. So yeah, like I know there's been some behind-the-scenes stuff that's been kind of causing a stir on the socials, and I do hope they get things sorted out. But yeah, overall, I hope the future of Doctor Who on television is good. I did listen to the Quinn Dilemma, Doctor Who audio that came out for the 40th anniversary of the Sixth Doctor's feature episode length debut. You know, like debut of his first full episode, and it was a really fun celebration of the Sixth Doctor and all the different companions he's had, especially in audios. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, that one. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say pop culture wise for this one. And the show Delayed Replay will be back in 2 weeks as usual. And without further delay, have a good day.